Welcome to the deep dive. In our interconnected digital world, it's easy to think everything just works seamlessly across borders, right?
Yeah, we kind of take it for granted.
But what happens when you're dealing with something complex like financial software, and it needs to work perfectly in different Chinese-speaking regions?
hmm
It's not just about translating menus, is it? You've got unique rules, totally different accounting standards sometimes, cultural things. It gets complicated fast.
It really does. And that's exactly what we're planning to unpack today.
Good.
This deep dive, we're pulling out the key insights from this really comprehensive document we've got on Chinese development help.
Okay.
The mission, basically, is to give you a shortcut through all that complexity, to really get the details on accounting, tax, localization,
Yeah.
all those tricky bits.
Yeah, cut through the noise. And this source material, it's not just some dry technical manual, is it?
No, not at all. It's really detailed, packed with technical specs, translation nuances, practical stuff. It gives you this granular look at how you make global software actually function on the ground.
Okay, fascinating. Let's get into it then. So, first off, I was kind of surprised. When we say Chinese accounting, it's not just one single system.
No, definitely not. And that's a really critical distinction to make right away.
Yeah.
The financial landscapes are, well, they're quite distinct, mainly because of the core accounting standards they use.
Right.
So in mainland China, you're primarily dealing with CAS, Chinese accounting standards.
CAS, okay.
And this system tends to be much more prescriptive. The Ministry of Finance, the MOF, often lays down the law, sometimes even mandating specific account codes and names.
Wow, really? Mandating account names.
Yeah, or strongly suggesting them. There's often less flexibility for companies compared to other systems.
So if I'm building software for that market, that top-down structure, it must mean a totally different design approach from the get-go.
Exactly. It's not just rules. It's a different philosophy about trust and control in the financial system.
How so?
Well, in the mainland, the state is almost like a built-in auditor. They shape accounting from the top down. So the software isn't just a tool, it kind of becomes an enforcer of state policy.
Right.
Developers really need to understand the why behind the rules,
Yeah,
the regulatory thinking.
makes sense.
And there's a heavy emphasis on historical cost for valuing assets. You see specific accounts for things like government grants,
Yeah.
very defined categories for income and expenses.
Okay.
The whole chart of accounts is really geared towards making it easy to calculate taxable income directly, ensuring you follow local tax rules, especially VAT that's ticking.
So for the tech side, that means what? Different databases, different modules.
Potentially, yeah. You might need fundamentally different database structures, maybe separate modules for just financial reporting versus tax compliance. It's like building two different engines inside one app.
Okay, that really paints a picture. How does that stack up against, say, Hong Kong or Taiwan? Is it just completely different?
It's a significant contrast.
Mm.
If you look at Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, they generally follow IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standard.
IFRS, more global standard.
Right, so their approach is much more principles-based. Companies get more leeway in designing their chart of accounts.
As long as it fits IFRS, yeah.
Exactly, as long as it aligns with the IFRS principles for presentation and disclosure. So less do this exactly, more here are the principles, show us you meet them, gives businesses more autonomy.
Right.
And you see fair value accounting used much more often there. The focus shifts more towards the economic substance of a transaction rather than just its legal form.
Interesting philosophical difference.
It is. And while tax is still super important, the chart of accounts is mainly set up for financial reporting first. Tax adjustments. They're usually handled separately, maybe outside the core COA or using specific reconciliation accounts.
So it's like two different operating systems for finance almost.
That's a good way to put it. One based on state rules, the other more on market principles. Trying to just port software from one to the other wouldn't really work without significant changes.
Yeah, you can't just copy-paste. It hammers home that these aren't just slight variations. They have huge practical impacts for anyone doing business across these areas. You're building for fundamentally different realities.
And building on that, what's really fascinating is how invoicing systems work, especially in mainland China and Taiwan. They play this central, almost unique role in the accounting process.
Central hell. You mean more than just a record of sale?
Oh, much more. It's not just a commercial document. It's often a government-controlled mechanism deeply woven into the financial system.
Wow, okay. Government-controlled invoices.
Exactly. Take mainland China's Fapiao system. It's incredibly rigorous.
Fapiao, I've heard that term.
Right. These are official invoices, but they're issued by the tax authorities. And they are absolutely essential for businesses to claim input VAT deductions, crucial for tax compliance.
Issued by the tax authority, so the government sees every transaction that needs one.
Pretty much. The Fapiao acts like a digital fingerprint for the transaction, creating this almost real-time tax ledger for the authorities. It makes certain kinds of tax evasion much harder. State oversight is baked right into daily business.
Okay, that's a lot of control. How does that impact the actual accounting, the journals?
Well, because managing Fapiaos is so critical, it demands incredibly detailed records. While it might not always be a separate Fapiao journal in the traditional book sense, the process itself effectively acts as a specialized journal for any transaction needing one. Think of something like an outgoing Fapiao registration book that's Aoja.
So the Fapiao itself, because it's so tightly controlled, almost dictates the journal entry in a way. Does that make things simpler or more complex day to day?
Both, maybe.
Right.
Simpler for compliance because the rules are rigid, the system enforces them. But it definitely adds operational complexity. You need meticulous management, integration into everything. And it's not just Fapiao. Certain industries have their own specific journals, too. Manufacturing might use a production cost journal, CUJR, right? Construction companies. They'd likely have a construction log or journal, tracking daily costs and activities.
Okay. And Taiwan, is it similar there?
Taiwan has its own system.
Yeah.
While the core journals might look similar to the mainland in some ways, there's a huge emphasis on their uniform invoice.
Or uniform invoice.
Uniform invoice.
Got it.
Processing those specific invoices is really central to how transactions get recorded. It leads to very structured entries in your sales and purchase journals.
So again, a very specific government-linked document is driving the accounting process, which I guess leads us nicely into the broader tax picture since these invoices are key.
Exactly. Building right on those invoicing systems, let's talk tax. VAT, value-added tax, is obviously huge in mainland China, as we mentioned.
Right. How does the mechanism work there? Is it pretty standard VAT?
The basics are similar to other VAT systems you might know. Businesses charge output VAT on sales, deduct the input VAT they paid on purchases, and pay the difference to the tax authorities.
Okay.
For software, that means you need really solid modules to track both input and output VAT, calculate the net amount, and generate reports that match up with all that Fapiao data we talked about.
Makes sense. The Fapiao is the proof.
Precisely. Now, one thing to note is zero rating. Things like exported goods, some exported services, they're zero rated. So 0% VAT is charged, but the business can still reclaim the input VAT they paid related to those exports.
Okay. That's important for international businesses. What about things totally outside VAT exemption?
Yes, definitely. Our source material points out several exemptions. Things like certain medical services, educational services, some specific financial services, even land sales, they're exempt from VAT.
So no VAT charged, but also no input VAT claimed on related costs.
Generally, that's how exemptions work, yes. So if you're in one of those sectors, your whole tax setup is different, and your software needs to handle that correctly.
Okay. So VAT is the main player, but are there other major business taxes we should know about?
Well, the source does mention GBRT, gross business receipts tax.
GBRT.
Yeah. It seems to apply mainly to specific industries, particularly financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, and also some small businesses. For them, it's GBRT instead of VAT.
Oh, okay. So it's not an additional tax. It's an alternative for certain sectors.
That seems to be the case based on the source.
Yeah.
And it just highlights, if you're building software or doing business there, you absolutely need to understand these differences.
Yeah.
Your tax calculation engine can't be a simple one-size-fits-all thing. It has to be smart enough to apply the right tax rules based on the industry, the business type, maybe even location.
Okay, so we've got different accounting philosophies, super important invoicing systems, complex tax rules. What does this all mean for the poor soul actually trying to build or use software in these places? It sounds like way more than just translating text.
Oh, absolutely. Way more. This is where we get into the real nitty-gritty, the stuff that can make or break how usable the software actually is.
Like what?
Well, even seemingly simple things. The source mentions how automatically adding a year to an app name, like TurboCASH H53-2025, could look weird or get cut off in Chinese interfaces or reports.
Huh. Seems minor, but I guess it adds up. affects the polish, the feel.
Exactly. It's about making sure the software doesn't just say things in Chinese, but that it sort of behaves appropriately too, right down to formatting and display.
Right. Making it feel native.
Another big one is hotkey consistency. You know, the little underlined letters for keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, Alt plus F for file, that kind of thing.
Right. The source emphasizes using that N symbol correctly in both the English and Chinese language file. So and file, and new, and open, and save, they need to work consistently with Alt plus key combos in Chinese too.
That's fascinating. So do developers need to think about intuitive keyboard interaction for Chinese users specifically?
And sometimes you even have to adapt the shortcuts themselves. What if the pinyin initial for a common Chinese term clashes with a standard English shortcut?
Oh, good point. Like S for save.
Exactly. The source gives an example. Maybe use T's for settings, shezi instead of S if S is already taken or confusing. You also see placeholders, like at appned at date, used to pull in dynamic values consistently.
So lots of UI details. Does it go deeper into the actual data?
Yes, absolutely deeper. It's not just the labels you see. As the source talks about translating entries in types tables.
Types tables, what are those?
Think of them as the core lists or reference data the software uses internally, like lists of account types, transaction types, things you might configure in settings.
Ah, okay, the background configuration stuff.
Right. And those need translating within each set of books, things like general ledger account types, debtor types, creditor types, bank account types, tax account types, even invoice types.
Wow, if those are wrong.
The whole system falls apart, basically. The underlying financial logic breaks down because the data isn't categorized correctly according to local standards.
And you even mentioned spacing earlier. That seems incredibly subtle.
It is. But important for readability and feel. Chinese generally doesn't use spaces between characters, even around foreign words or acronyms.
Okay.
So a term like TLIEOP, which seems to be some financial data protocol mentioned, would typically be written without spaces in Chinese text. But the source notes, sometimes UIs do add spaces, maybe for clarity on a button or in a mixed language list. It's these tiny details.
It really makes you appreciate the invisible work that goes into making global software feel right. These small things add up to the whole user experience.
Exactly. And to give you a better feel for just how deep this goes, we could look at some specific translation examples from the source, not to read a list, but to see the kind of precision needed.
Yeah, I'm curious. Especially things like error messages. Getting those wrong could be disastrous in financial software.
Absolutely disastrous. Translating errors isn't just about the words, it's about the impact. Take a message like, batch is not in balance.
Ooh, yeah, that's a bad one.
Right. It signals a serious problem with financial accuracy, potentially tax compliance. The translation has to convey that urgency, that need for immediate action, but maybe without sounding overly alarming or, culturally inappropriate.
It's tricky balance.
Very. Or think about, this operation cannot be undone. That warning needs universal clarity and finality. Choosing the exact right phrase, testing it, it's a huge task.
And what about just the everyday financial terms? Does the translation of invoice or tax account subtly change depending on whether it's from mainland China versus, say, Hong Kong?
That's a great point. While basic UI stuff like yes, no, okay, cancel, close, edit, save, print need to be clear and consistent everywhere.
Yeah, the simple stuff.
The financial terms are where those different accounting standards really matter. Invoice, credit note, purchase, supplier return, bank account, tax account, general ledger, debtor, creditor, fails debit. These have to align perfectly with a local standard.
So the word for invoice might even subtly imply FAPIO in the mainland context.
Potentially. Or the surrounding context and system behavior would make that link clear. Even things like amount xdcup.inkle or total discount need unambiguous translation. In currency, of course, renminbi, RMB, yuan, for the mainland. Though interestingly, the source also had translations for rands and cents, showing the software aims broader than just China.
So it's about the concept, not just the word.
Exactly. Does the translated term accurately reflect the local financial practice and rules? That's the key.
And what about managing data, connectivity stuff that's crucial now?
Yeah, fundamental terms like import, export, freeze, cancel need to be spot on. And reporting terms like sales report, cash up report, then connectivity, network server, data replication, email account, SMTP username password, FTP. All need precise, consistent translation so people can actually use these features reliably across regions.
It's just layer upon layer of detail.
Yeah.
Hashtag tag outro. Wow, okay, what a journey that was. We went from the big picture, the different accounting worlds of CAS and IFRS, down through the critical role of FAPIAO in uniform invoices, into the weeds of VAT, exemptions, GBRT, and then into this fascinating granular world of software localization way beyond just words, hotkeys, data types, even spacing.
It really shows how tangled up the financial rules, the regulations, and the language all are.
Absolutely. It makes you realize that this idea of a single global digital space, while underneath, it's actually this incredibly rich, complex tapestry, isn't it? Full of local history, specific rules, unique demands.
Yeah, the seamless surface hides a lot of complexity.
And I guess that leaves us, and you, with a thought. How much more of this detail is hidden beneath the surface of the tools we use every day without thinking?
Right.
What other invisible complexities, these layers of adaptation, are constantly working behind the scenes to shape our global digital experience and just make things work? Something to think about.